Thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon, I'm Matt. I'm going to throw a lot of ideas at you in the next 10 minutes, but first off, I wanted to start with a question. So if we go around the world and ask people what do they most want from their lives, what do you think the most common answer is?
Happiness.
Wow. That was really easy. Yeah, we got that in one. Oh. Can I just click on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a really important graph. This could go back to 1950, but this actual graph starts from 1970. What we see here is GDP going up, which is our measure of society and success, which is a measure of kind of wealth and economic growth. And we've got life satisfaction, which is pretty static or possibly kind of declining. And so this poses a really kind of important question for us. And what it potentially shows is that getting wealthier, which is such a big emphasis in our society, might not be the most important thing. And if people really want happiness, that's what they care about, how come we're not making much improvement when so much has changed in kind of since the 1970s with what we're doing? So let's look at that a bit more. Now at the same time we've got this going on. This is WWF do the Living Planet Index, and this is a measure every year of the health of the biosphere. It's really bad news, every bit of it that you look at. So whether you're looking at marine species or freshwater or terrestrial species, they're all in decline. Obviously this is really bad if you care about pandas or cheetahs or any animals. That's very upsetting, but it's also really bad because human society is nestled within the natural world. We depend on the biosphere for our food and everything else, and obviously this essentially is why our society is unsustainable. So I'm afraid to say it's a crisis, it's bad news. What are we going to do about it? So here's a solution you might not have thought of before: green and happy. I did this as my thesis when I did my a degree at university. So I just passed around the thesis. So it was based on an online survey of 700 people. And the idea is to show that when people think about going green sustainability, you think, I can't drive my car, I can't do this, I can't do that, which makes it very unpopular. So are there ways that we can think of things that actually make you happier, but are green activities, which could inform policies, and if kind of adopted widely, could be a positive, happy way to move to a sustainable state, rather than focusing on negative things and what we shouldn't be doing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to whistle through them as quickly as I can, looking at the time, but I'm going to give you 10 areas in which well-being and environmental behaviours kind of intertwine, which can inform the kind of changes that we should be making. So first up, living a more local life. The car was designed to make us all more independent and be able to travel around faster, but actually this seems all too familiar, that our cities are kind of log-jammed, and the cars had a kind of whole series of negative knock-on effects. One of them being that we spend a lot more time travelling today than we would have done 200 years ago. So we spend a lot of time in the car, on the train, which eats into our time. So by living more locally, say so that you can walk to your school or walk to your shops, if we have more human-scale communities, people feel a lot happier. One of the main reasons why this is if you look at what makes people happy, one of the strongest correlates for happy people is how many neighbours they know. So people that can say, I know 5 of my neighbours or 10 of the people on my street, or maybe I live in Bali in a small village, and maybe I know 30 people that live all around me. You tend to be happier the more of your neighbours you know. So living locally, it's not just about the fact that you don't have to burn loads of fuel to get to the shop or get to your school or whatever. It's also the fact that you're going to hang out with people that you like, you'll build close relationships, that's going to make you happier. And in London, one of the great things we could do to make London greener would be take the cars off the streets, start having city farms, urban farms, community growing things. And it's a classic case of seeing how you're lowering people's ecological footprint, but you're boosting people's well-being, hopefully keeping it popular, which would be good to do. There's my girlfriend on a bike, human-powered transport. So basically, there's 2 main benefits to human-powered transport, which is psychological. People that move themselves around tend to feel kind of more confident, and you're building your abilities to move. And physiological, so obviously you're less likely to get fat. Obesity is very tightly correlated with depression, and you're generally healthier. So from a government point of view, if you encourage people to move around more, you reduce pollution, you reduce congestion, you hit loads of health targets, and it's a big one for that. Now, create connection to the natural world. possibly one of the reasons why well-being is kind of remaining static or even declining is because what we're doing in the modern world, we're spending all our time in boxes, in offices, we're not getting contact with nature. Additional to that, it's very hard to go and tell inner-city kids who might be very apathetic on this issue, you should care about the environment, because frankly, what is their environment? It might just be a very urban setting. So if you can think about the possibility of taking people from cities into nature, that really boosts well-being, and it has knock-on positive effects because it makes you kind of care for nature more. And I mean, there's really amazing studies that show that if someone's ill in hospital, just giving them a plant can really boost their well-being, things like that. And yeah, here's a very happy kid who was doing his kind of best Mowgli impression and really enjoying himself. Choice pruning. So in modern society, we've been sold the myth of choice, which is that basically we all think, you know, there's so much new choice in the modern age, and you go into a shop and, you know, are you going to get the Levi's or the Timberlands, and what car is it, BMW, all this, and there's all this choice you're bombarded with, but actually all that choice kind of stresses you out, and you're constantly thinking, have I made the right choice, and what choices are my peers making, and all this choice is sold to us as a great thing, but is it really? And if you think about it, are we making choice on the really big issues? Like, all the choice we're thinking about might be what car we drive or what pair of shoes we drive, but are we deciding how much time we spend in the office or what we do on the weekend? Actually, a lot of those really big decisions, how we spend our lives, are being made elsewhere, which is not great for our well-being. So there's a huge amount of research that shows that the more materialistic you are, the less happy you are. And essentially, there's a guy called Tim Cassett who looks at this and says, and there's something called the hedonic treadmill. So basically, people who are very materialistic, you get into the mindset, if I buy that product, I'm going to be really happy. And actually, you kind of are, you buy it and you get a boost, but then the trouble is that it wears off quite quickly, and you instantly want another one, so that's the hedonic treadmill. And additionally, being materialistic is extrinsic motivation, so that means you're doing something for the desire that you get an external reward. And people tend to be a lot happier when they do things for the sake of doing it. So rather than doing something to try and get more things, you're happier if you do things just because you enjoy doing it, which is essentially what we think of as enjoyable pursuits. So you might know that feeling when you're cooking and you really get into it, that makes you happy, or you're cycling, whatever your hobby is, you're being creative, that makes you happy. So why don't we switch to the 4-day working week? It'd be great for the environment, we all spend less time travelling. What can we do with our Monday? We could have creative Mondays, community volunteering Mondays, hang with your family Mondays. There's no reason to work a 5-day working week, so let's go for 4. Now I'm speeding up now, but I'm going to try and get through all the slides. So personal development, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And he basically said that as you fulfill needs, you move up the pyramid. So at the bottom, you're most concerned with your physiological needs, am I getting the food, then it's safety and security, then you want to be loved and belonging. As you move up there, when you get to the top of the pyramid, you're more concerned with global issues, and you're more likely to want to volunteer or help other people. And so people also tend to, when they go through personal development, it boosts their well-being. This is interesting because if you want people to care for the environment and do things for the environment, you essentially want them to go up the pyramid and get to be like this guy, who's obviously very happy and very caring. And we had this kind of idea that maybe the way to solve environmental problems is to actually get everyone up the pyramid and get everyone kind of being more connected to nature, happier. And that's got to really kind of inform government policy. So rather than constantly stressing about boosting the economy, why not boost people's well-being or boost people's contact to nature or their kind of spirituality? So let's go a little bit hippie and hit the transcendent. So this is where kind of science and spirit meet. Science tells us that everything's connected. Our bodies are made up of atoms that we get through the food that we eat, you know, and the plants are growing from the sun. We're completely connected into our universe, and that's what the mystics have told us. You know, like that's what Buddha and Jesus and everyone said. They said everything's one. You know, relax, you're God. So possibly that should inform how we deal with this issue. So to conclude, we're in a situation of crisis with the natural world around us in massive decline, and society's got all kinds of problems, and we're really up against it. But can that crisis be an opportunity? And that opportunity is to say, well, what do we value? What's the underlying values that are under our society? And if we look at those and say, actually, maybe it's not all about wealth and GDP, let's focus on our well-being and everything else. Thank you very much.